Sometimes you stumble upon a perfect looking wave and you can't help but think to yourself, this is going to be a great session. That's exactly what happened that day.
Oh Lord. Oh, that's a good wave. Oh my gosh.
Everything was perfect. The waves were on, the tide was just right, and there was no one out. I paddled out thinking that this was going to be one of those perfect sessions, and that I would be able to make a really good video from it. I missed my first two waves because I was too deep to make the section. I also realized I had forgotten to set the camera on 4K, so I quickly paddled in to fix that. As I was running back to the water, I saw an absolute bomb roll through, and once again, I couldn't help but think I was going to catch some insane rides. I was running at full speed trying to get back out there as fast as possible. One interesting thing to note though is that this wave broke a lot more on the inside than the two waves I had paddled for earlier, and that is something I failed to observe in the midst of the excitement. Another bomb followed shortly after and broke more or less at the same spot. But because I was paddling out, looking out to sea, I didn't catch any landmark to help me with my positioning for these waves. The only landmarks I had were the ones from my first two waves, and those were clearly too deep. But because I had been distracted by having to reset the camera, I didn't really learn from it, and you will see that I will go right back to where I was on those first waves.
Oh, that's a bomb! Oh my gosh. That is a bomb.
It's hard to see, but I've already paddled too deep here. And that third bomb broke more on the inside than where I'm headed to. But again, I have no idea where I'm at right now because I haven't turned my head once during that entire paddle out. I was too excited to get back out there. I missed the wave here, but that's not a bad thing because I was too deep and we would have seen the exact same thing we saw on my first waves. But we can see that the inside section is perfect, with plenty of room for a few turns. I'm just not where I should be. I'm even deeper than where I was in the previous clip here, and unsurprisingly, I can't make the section. And once again, the inside of that wave is breaking slowly and looks perfect. I couldn't see any of that from out the back, and so I thought I was just choosing the wrong waves. I also started putting the blame on my board selection, thinking I was undervolumed and too slow, when it was really just a positioning issue.
I really thought the swell wasn't going to back up so much overnight, so I got my really thin and under-volumed board. And the waves are perfect, but they are really weak, so I'm just going to struggle through the whole thing, I think. My other board isn't waxed up, so that's why I didn't even bother taking it. Bad decisions.
And yes, my groveler would surely have been more appropriate for these waves. But you'll see later on that as soon as I adjust my positioning, all of a sudden I'm making turns and enjoying my session a lot more. The thing is that some of the sets were indeed breaking deeper, and those were the ones I was seeing.
Oh my gosh.
These waves were more rare and definitely faster than the white balls breaking on the inside, but I was still chasing them anyways. And even when I take off early and pump as hard as I can, I'm not able to make the section. I'm sure you've all been there and can relate to how frustrated I'm starting to be in that moment. And you best believe I still paddled deeper. I'm ridiculously deep here, but remember, at this point, I'm thinking the issue is that I'm too slow and under-volumed. So in my head, the solution isn't to paddle to the shoulder, where the wave is usually weaker, but towards the outside, where it's steeper and punchier. But this wave is a bit unusual, as it is actually smaller on the outside and breaks faster there. And as it wraps around the sandbar, it wedges against it and slows down. Waves like this are pretty rare on our coast, and I'm not used to them. That's probably why I'm making so many mistakes with my wave reading and positioning. I mean, I don't really know why I'm so off there. It's frustrating looking back at this footage and seeing how I was just a couple meters away from the really good session I thought I was going to have. Thankfully though, I figured it out at some point, but we're not there yet. Look at this next wave, and look at how the shoulder is actually higher than the outside. It really is wedging against the sandbar and offering a perfect wall for a few turns. I am so close here. How do I not realize that I'm just too deep every single time? Have a look at this next set. The wave is breaking on the outside where I am positioned. Look at how smaller and shorter that wave is. This sandbar was acting like a mini point break, and the best waves were the ones coming more at an angle from the left of the screen. Just like this one, for example. The reason is because more energy gets to the inside section, where the wave turns around the sandbar, therefore providing a bigger wave and a longer ride. The waves coming in from straight on were not really wrapping around the sandbar, but just hitting it hard on the outside. Surely here, considering how close I am to making the section, I am going to realize that I need to take off a little more on the shoulder, right? Well, no, I'm still flirting with the deepest take of spot to try and compensate for my lack of volume, and I'm getting really frustrated at this point. This is wave 9 for me, and I've not made the section a single time. And I'm the only one to blame because the wave is really good on the inside. Yes, it is a really mellow wave with the energy concentrated in the top half, but it's much more rippable than whatever I'm trying to surf all the way on the outside. But one thing is going to finally turn this session around, and that event is simply two locals joining me on the wave. So I'm looking at those guys paddling out and notice the first guy taking off on a wave I just missed. He is way more on the inside than I am, and he's going to have the ride that I've been trying to find for almost an hour. And it's finally going to dawn on me that my positioning is way off. It's going to become even more obvious to me when the same guy who just caught the wave I had missed caught a second wave on his way back out from the first one. That second wave was way further on the inside, but somehow it was bigger and longer than his first ride. Upon seeing that, I started paddling towards the inside and finally caught a better wave. It wasn't great by any means, but it felt special to finally be able to make a turn. The next wave was probably better, but I was really happy to understand what I had been doing wrong this entire time. I have decided to include a few waves from this guy with the yellow board because he was surfing this wave beautifully and had a completely different board under his feet. I think it's nice to see different styles and different lines on the same wave. I also feel like I owe him the turnaround of my session. This is my first good wave. I was super happy with it, and it was a bit tricky for me because the rhythm was completely different than the section I was trying to surf earlier. I really had to control my speed and not pump down the line as the pocket was really small. Whereas before, I was trying to pump as hard as I could because the section was super fast. And on my way back out, this is what I saw. An absolute bomb breaking way on the inside. That was my first time seeing those waves from the front, and it really helped me realize just how far off I was before. So I decided to paddle uncomfortably wide towards where this wave just broke. Seems like it was the right move as I caught a very similar wave just seconds later. I did not make the turn, but now my positioning is dialed in and I know I'm going to get some nice waves. Look at this entire set. All three following waves broke at exactly the same spot and offered some very fun looking rides. I'm getting frustrated here again because I'm unable to make a solid turn. And this time, my board might be the actual reason, as the wave was super mellow and my board a little small. It's frustrating because now I have found the perfect takeoff spot, but I can't make the most of it. Little bit of a smaller wave, but I'm happy with my snap here. And then a quick check turn at the end to finish it off. Here, we are going to see why sitting wide was the right move. That guy caught a wave close to where I was positioned early in the session. It's a good wave, and he's got a good ride out of it. Look at how much wider the next wave is breaking, and it is a much bigger wave. Those were the ones I was missing earlier, and those are the ones I am catching now. Unfortunately, I can't complete my cutback, which is a bummer because that wave had one or two more good turns in it. This one was a closeout, not much I could do with it, but even those subpar waves are great because they keep me in the rhythm and they push me wider than I would normally want to sit, which is setting me up nicely for when the bombs do roll through. I caught this tiny wave on my way out, again just to stay in the rhythm and keep me wide. And it's going to pay off nicely in the next clip. Here, look at where the other guys are positioned relative to where I am paddling out. They are sitting much deeper and are catching waves very similar to the waves I was catching early in my session. But those waves are small and they run really fast. They have some big boards under their feet and are able to trim down the line with ease, which is something I wasn't able to do on those waves. But now, look at that bomb coming through the left of the screen here. That's what I'm getting in position for, and that's the type of waves I need to be on with my small board. Much bigger, much slower, and more rippable. Smaller wave again, and pretty fast, but I think I made the most of it. Nice little snap right in the pocket, quickly followed up with a cutback. I'm happy with this one. Missed paddle in here. I think I was slightly too wide, and I also did not paddle enough to get into the wave. I stood up too early and got out of the wave. The outcome would surely have been different with a bigger board, but it wasn't impossible to catch this wave with the board I was riding. Here goes my most well-surfed wave of the session. Not the biggest wave, but the placement of my turns was on point. Smooth cut back to start things off, and a nice transition into a lovely snap right in the pocket. Super happy with this wave. Just a little too deep here. That's unfortunate because that wave had some potential down the line. I am super happy with this wave. I could have definitely been deeper, but made the most of what was left in the wave. Two smooth cutbacks pushed all the way back to the foam each time. And another wave from the yellow board guy, just for some variety. Been a while since I haven't been too deep. You can easily see how I've paddled too far to the right of the screen here and got out of the sweet spot for my takeoff. I tried catching this wave on my way out, but it didn't really have much to offer. But once again, these waves allow me to push a little wider and ensure that I am not paddling too deep. The wave is starting to change now, and you can see that the white sets are beginning to close out a little more. It's only going to get worse from here on. I am sitting as wide as I was earlier, but those waves are not offering the same open face as they were. I'm still trying to stay in the rhythm and catch as many of them as possible, which is good. As you can see, I'm sitting wide, catching the wave right where I need to, but it's not wedging up against the sandbar as much as it was. It's breaking mushier and straighter. I am paddling out for one last wave and then I'm done. That's a good enough wave to end the session with it. I got 2 snaps in, though they were both too late and I couldn't get the board vertical, and then I almost got a really nice floater at the end there. So that's a wrap. I like this session because it illustrates pretty well how frustrating surfing can be sometimes. And not just when the conditions are bad, but also when it is perfect. And that's because it doesn't really matter how good the waves are. What matters most is how well you can read them. And if you can't position properly before catching the wave and also after catching it, then the whole session is going to pass you by. There are a couple of things that you can do to make sure that doesn't happen though. If you have plenty of time, before you paddle in, try and wait for a few sets to roll through, because most of the time, sets do not come in at the same angle and one set might be closing out while the very next set might be creating a perfect wave. If you are short on time, I would recommend paddling wide and then sitting there to begin with. You'll be able to see how all of the waves are breaking. Whereas if you paddled straight to the inside, you would only be able to see how the deepest sets are breaking, and you might be missing out on the wide balls. In some cases, just like during this session, the wide balls are actually the best waves. I am pretty confident that this has happened to almost all of us. But we don't all have a camera filming ourselves to then be able to understand what we did wrong. So I'm hoping this video will help you and that you can learn something from it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.